As Britain grappled with the loss of its empire in the aftermath of World War II, it was forced to carve out a new role for itself on the global stage, a role that would see it become a financial centre for dirty money and dubious dealings. You see, British overseas territory and crown dependencies offered a loophole for, let's say, lighter financial regulations and easier movement of money. This offshore banking transformed London into an attractive hub for essentially skirting traditional banking limitations. But these drastic changes to its financial world also tangled the UK in a complex web of oligarchs and dirty money, making it susceptible to the influence of those with colossal fortunes, but more importantly, substantial corruption. The result? By overlooking strategic considerations and eagerly embracing investments, critical sectors of British society have been dangerously infiltrated by Russia. With this, the United Kingdom now finds itself grappling against the shadowy aspects of one of the world's most menacing aggressors. So it is in Russia where our story begins, in the 1990s, with the fall of the USSR. Welcome to Living History. The relationship between Britain and Russia is a complicated tale of two nations intertwined between cooperation and conflict. These two powers have often found themselves at odds, their interests clashing on the global stage. Despite periods of friction, there have been moments of relief, if only through blood. After all, the British royal family and the Russian Tsars were ancestral cousins. And during World War II, Britain and Russia formed an unlikely alliance against the common enemy of Nazi Germany. However, this alliance ended as soon as the Cold War began, reigniting mistrust. British and Russian intelligence agencies turned to espionage tactics once again. Suspicion and double-crossing reached its peak with the discovery of the infamous Cambridge 5 spy ring. Its most notorious spy, Kim Philby, had risen to the upper divisions of MI6, while spending decades betraying his country and working for Moscow. The collapse of the USSR in 1991, however, reopened the doors for a new era of cooperation, as both countries looked to rebuild and strengthen their economic power. As Britain transformed its financial landscape, opportunities arose for newly wealthy Russians, who were eager to secure their fortunes in stable and discreet financial havens that did not ask too many uncomfortable questions. The UK also introduced golden visas, offering residencies in exchange for significant investment. Suddenly, Britain was a magnet for no-questions-asked Russian billionaires, leading to a substantial influx of wealth into the United Kingdom. Thus emerged Londongrad, a term symbolizing London's transformation into a playground for Russian oligarchs. Caviar and champagne was on the menu for all. But the dawn of the 21st century came with renewed geopolitical tensions. Russia's aggressive foreign policy, highlighted by the annexation of Crimea in 2014 and the 2022 invasion of Ukraine, marked a definitive end to any post-Cold War thaw and signaled a new era of confrontation. And here the problems really begin. Britain, and London in particular, had built its economic foundations in the center of a complex web of oligarchs whose hands could now reach into the heart of British society. Some known, most unknown, speaking instead through money from beneath the shadows of their investments. Figures like Alexander Timirka and Lord Lebedev, however, are visible frontmen. Timirka has made headlines with his donations exceeding £1 million to the Conservative Party, while Lord Lebedev, owner of the Independent and Evening Standard, exerts significant influence in British media. Not to mention, Lord Lebedev's appointment to the House of Lords was itself filled with controversy. Born in Moscow and the son of a former KGB agent, his elevation to a legislative role in the UK amidst heightened tensions with Russia raised concerns. Reports suggested British security services had reservations about his appointment, but were allegedly overruled by Prime Minister Boris Johnson. Johnson's personal relationship with Lebedev intensified accusations of cronyism and lack of transparency, reflecting broader anxieties about Russian influence in UK politics. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? These individuals, however, are just part of a larger network of Russian influence in Britain. Roman Abramovich's ownership of Chelsea Football Club, bought for £140 million in 2003, and Alisher Usmanov's investments in Arsenal FC and tech ventures like a £100 million stake in Spotify are barely the beginning. The staggering Russian investment in London's real estate, exceeding £1.1 billion over a decade, has escalated a lack of affordability in the housing market for average citizens. Many of these high-value properties remain vacant, standing as ghostly monuments to this influx of foreign capital, rather than serving as homes for residents. But there are no coincidences when it comes to money. Russian investments in particular are not isolated financial decisions of convenience and whimsical guesswork. They look to form part of a larger deliberate strategy, possibly orchestrated at the highest levels of the Kremlin. For example, Russia's expertise in disinformation campaigns was starkly evident in the 2016 Brexit referendum, when a deluge of fake news and social media manipulation barraged and clouded public discourse. Cyber attacks against British institutions show Russia's commitment to a form of hybrid warfare, one that transcends physical borders, and allowing the path of its dirty money shows how it can happen from within. In 2018, for example, cyber attacks by Russia's military agency targeted the British Foreign Office and the Defense Science and Technology Laboratory, an agency of the Ministry of Defense responsible for developing cybersecurity and biochemical defense for the security of the UK. And in September 2023, 5 people were accused of conspiring to collect information intended to be directly or indirectly useful to Russia. Echoes the Cold War, doesn't it? However, the government's overall response to Russia raises questions about its adequacy and integrity. Despite imposing sanctions, the UK appears willing to turn a blind eye to Russian dirty money, while Russia sees ever-growing opportunities to exploit Britain's weaknesses. In June last year, MPs warned that the government's failure to tackle Russian money washing through the UK meant millions of pounds used to finance Putin's war against Ukraine flowed directly through London. The Commons Foreign Affairs Committee said ministers were complacent, turning a blind eye to morally bankrupt billionaires using the UK as a safe deposit box, with the UK turning into a safe haven for corrupt wealth, particularly from Russia. Money, it seems, or at least Russian money, really can buy you anything, and the UK has long faced criticism for its lax enforcement against financial crimes and growing reputation for laundering dirty money. The government argues it has taken steps towards restoring integrity to Britain's financial system by introducing measures that increase transparency of political donations and imposing sanctions on Russian individuals and entities. But the fact remains that the UK is tangled in a network of illicit finance, where the Kremlin can pull more and more strings, and the UK is struggling to stand up against Russian geopolitical overreach without biting the hand that feeds it. Russian oligarchs with direct links to the Kremlin have over 3 decades poured large sums of money into British political parties, think tanks, news media, and charitable organizations, raising questions about their motives and influence on policy decisions. We must thus ask ourselves, has Russia bought Britain's compliance and submission? To find out more about the history behind the UK's financial crisis, check out our next video linked here. See you there.